My biggest question to you today is this one. Is democracy the answer to every situation everywhere in the world? Is democracy the answer? Question mark. Well, we are currently into a democratic Libya. It's never used to be democratic in the past. We're going to do some comparison so you can see if democracy truly is feasible for everybody in the world. Because the West always tells you you need to have democratic procedures. You need to have democracy in your country or else you're not going to get any fundings. Or you don't get democracy, maybe we may bring democracy by force in your country. Well, that was the case of Libya, where they brought democracy by force. And this is how Libya is.
It is great to be here in free Benghazi and in free Libya.
This is Libya before. This is Libya after. Let me start over. This is Libya with Gaddafi, the dictator. This is Libya after. Which one do you like more? Let's dive deep into it. Now, Libya with Gaddafi back in time was a lovely place, beautiful. It wasn't a democracy. I'm sure all you heard about Gaddafi was he was a dictator that unalived people. He did wrong things and stuff like that. Well, listen to this and you may pull your own conclusion about Gaddafi. Muammar Gaddafi, the dictator, when he was in power, Libyans did not pay tax. Not as you know it. Absolutely not. So the bottom line is you did the job, you received your money, it was your money. If there was anything that sounded like tax, it was minus $10 at all. So people did not pay tax. During the regime of Muammar Gaddafi, the dictator, Libyans that wanted to be involved in agriculture would get help from the government. So basically, the government will fund you a trainer or a coach to teach you how to do agriculture. Then they will give you land, right? They will give you machines. They will give you trucks. Libya was a very dry country. Very, very dry, desertic, until Muammar Gaddafi, the dictator, decided to bring in water. Water coming from where? Water coming from the sea. He directed the biggest irrigation system ever seen in the world. Yes, the man literally brought in water from the sea. Look at the map here. You see the map? This is Libya. It's very sunny, very desertic. The place was dry, like a desert. He brought in water from the irrigation from the sea into Libya, and with that rendering the country livable. Under the Libyan government run by Muammar Gaddafi, the dictator, when two people decided to get married, the government will provide them with an apartment for free. Yes, an apartment for free, and you don't need to pay anything for it. And also, should you decide to have a baby, the government will give you $5,000 equivalent. $5,000 for baby, just imagine. In Libya again, whenever government sold oil or petrol or gas, or whatever you want to call it, they will provide each citizen with something, but like some money. Like, brother, good morning. We sold oil. Yes, the oil from the soil. Here's your chunk. This is your money. Oh, thank you very much. So because the oil belongs to everybody, everybody got something from every sale that they did. Surely not every single sale, but there was a quarters of the year where people would get something back. If you don't want cash back, you get subsidies from the government. That was Libya run by the dictator Muammar Gaddafi.
So today's episode is gonna be about democracy. I've talked about democracy before. I think I talked about three, and probably I'm gonna mention it a little bit there as well. I talk about democracy. I talk about dictator, I talk about terrorists, and how these words change meaning based on who is using them or who they are referring to. For example, I said Mandela was actually called a terrorist back then, and all of a sudden he became a hero. So who decide who's a freedom fighter and who decide who's a terrorist, right? And who decide who's a dictator and what does that even mean, depending on where it's coming from and depending on what narrative is created. But today we're actually strictly going to talk about democracy, because I think that word has been thrown around when it comes to so many things, when it comes to overthrowing governments, African government precisely, and so on. So we're gonna right away just start with what the description is. Obviously, democracy, if we have to just like plainly say what it is, government for people, by the people. the majority of people. That's what it really means in that sense. As I said, it's democracy in the sense of like election would be like the leader that is elected by most people, right? That's what it means really. However, does it really mean that the leader that is in power is actually selected by people? Because it's actually not. It's actually not what it really end up meaning in that sense. And I will actually share information about what I mean by that. But first of all, I want to make it very simple. So for example, democracy in my house means that, like in that sense of parents are obviously the one not selected by children, but they are the one having to make the right decisions on behalf of the children in that sense, right? So if you have children, depending on what age they are, you are actually, in that sense, democracy will be like, okay, so are you going to allow your 15-year-old daughter to come back anytime they want from wherever they go? Or even your 15-year-old son? You are going to be so democratic that you allow them to do anything they want, because democracy in the sense of, like when we look at that in the form of elections, it means like, okay, so now you allow everybody to go ahead and like, okay, this one want this one want this. But what if those people don't actually know what you stand for, you the leader? What if they actually don't even know your motives? What if your motives are not even good for them, right? So in that sense, democracy is really, really, I don't even want to say misunderstood, because misunderstood by the masses, but the people trying to apparently spread democracy, they actually know exactly what they are doing. They are not spreading a democracy. As I said before, they are actually destabilizing countries so that they now, in the name of democracy, be able to invade these countries and say this and this, you need this and this, but actually they want the resources. So the example that I'm using about, your child, obviously there's a certain age when you now will give the child to be able to make their own decisions. Now, let's look at democracy from example of like somebody else wanting to decide on your behalf how your own country should be democratic. So now I'm raising my children maybe the African way. Now, maybe a Western parent or a white parent will come and decide on my behalf that that's not how you have to treat a child. Will I now go to them and say that that's those kind of things that you're allowing the child? Don't you think that's not good? Now, that can happen within a good relationship. Like if I have a white, friend, and, I'm advising them and they're advising me, that's different. But we are talking about somebody just coming to your house and deciding that the way you treat your children is not good. I'm going to help you, raise them, or I'm going to just kick you out of the house and say that I'm going to, the children have to listen to me, they have to do it my way. That's actually what's happening in most of these countries when you look at it, to be quite honest. Because when you look at even overthrowing governments, most of the time, and that's why most countries that has coups are actually countries that the ex-colonizer are actually France. Because most of the countries that were previously colonized by France has a lot of coups, like so many coups, to be quite honest. That's because when they elect a president, which obviously in that sense, okay, this is the person we want, we think he has our good, he has good motives for us and for the people and so on. France now actually assassinate that person because that person is nationalizing everything. They are saying, like, for example, let me take the example of, Thomas Sankara and even Patrice Lumumba. That's actually why they were killed, because they were saying that, for example, when you look at even at Thomas Sankara, he actually was, I think he's known as the first president to actually kind of appreciate women in the sense of like giving women rights to do things that they usually were not allowed to do. And once you recognize a woman, you actually recognize the whole, country. And I think that was smart of him to do that. But He only led for 4 years, and then the next year he was assassinated. I think in '87, I'm not quite sure. He was assassinated. Obviously, the West used his best friend and so on. That's it. And look at Patrice Lumumba. Same thing. He was democratically elected, but guess what? He was assassinated, and then somebody else whom the West could use with, I think they used for 40 years, was actually put in power. And when you look at that guy, you can literally see that he is regretting what he did. I think it's like the Judas Iscariot kind of case. He looks like he's a living cop. Like, honestly speaking, like a living dead. He looks so horrible, and you can see he's unhappy, and I do feel sorry for him. And when you look at the countries where the leaders were tortured, like Libya and Congo, the people are now suffering. And I think part of the suffering, except for the fact that, they kill or they allow, the Westerners to actually assassinate their leaders. The other thing is also because they were part of that assassination. They were literally taking part in that assassination. And, they are actually the one, and that's a problem. Do you want to tell me that when somebody is leading a country rightly, people don't recognize it? I'm Namibian, and we have a new president, a female president for the first time, and he's not my tribe. Usually there's this thing of like, oh no, he's not my tribe and so on. But I'm not the kind of person who say that just because I'm black, I will support a black person even if they're not having my benefit. No. If I think a white candidate is better than a black candidate, I will choose the white candidate without no doubt. I have no problem. I don't go according to that. So for me, she's not my tribe, but I feel like she's doing an amazing job. Like, honestly speaking, universities are free in Namibia, schools are already free, now universities are free, and she is busy nationalizing everything. She kicked all the miners out. I feel like she's doing a good job, right? So that's the thing. So I feel like when somebody is doing a good job in a specific country, the citizens know that they are doing a good job. So how do you get convinced? But obviously, I'm also going to give the benefit of the doubt in the sense that people are actually afraid to be killed. So sometimes there's this thing that if you don't do it, I'm going to kill you. Maybe that's what's happening. But yeah, let's go back to democracy. So now, explain this. Recently, and I think I talked about it, recently there was a so-called coup in Ivory Coast. And this is a thing. And I explained in that video that, yes, it was not a coup. It was kind of, I think people imagine fake news and whatever. Whoever started this, I don't even know what the reason was, or what was it, wrong information, gone wrong, or whatever the case was, right? But it was looking like it's a coup, but it wasn't, right? But we are not looking at the fact that it wasn't. We are looking at the fact that when you look at the masses, they were happy that Ouattara was actually overthrown. He wasn't overthrown, obviously, but we are talking about the possibility of them thinking that he was overthrown. They were happy. So the fact that people were happy shows that Ouattara is not really their choice. Now, how did Ouattara came into power? We know that Ouattara was brought into power by France, right? That's the whole thing. So how is that democratic? How is that democratic when it's not the people's choices, right? So and that's a problem. That's a problem. Because this country come and introduce democracy. Somebody come into my house and say that, you know what, you're not taking care of your children very well. I'm going to take over. But when you come and take care of my children, you are not their mom. Ouattara is not really fighting for, because he's not from Ivory Coast originally. Remember, Ouattara is actually Burkina Faso, right? He's from Burkina Faso. So he's a Burkinabé, right? And that's what they do. They apparently take one person from one country and take them to another country because they wouldn't care about those citizens because he's not original. Like taking somebody from South Africa and making him a president in Namibia, he wouldn't care about Namibian because he's not Namibian, which is even quite stupid because he's still Africans, right? But forget about that. So when you look at that, the fact that people were happy that Ouattara was overthrown show that they are actually not wanting him as a choice for a president. But guess what? He was put in there by France and they are happy, right? And the thing is, when you look at that, so there's another guy, I think he's younger, running for, like, it's almost like the opposition. Now Ouattara brought that rule that if you are not, I don't know, like, I think he has a French citizenship, and then, he was born in Ivory Coast, but apparently he can vote. So how is that democratic? But France is not doing anything because they are happy that Ouattara is the one that's going to run so that they can still continue exploiting resources, right? And let's look at Paul Biya. Let's look at, like, seriously, guys, how is that democratic? And now that is a problem because now they are after Ibrahim Traore because obviously he's not democratically elected according to them. But right now, that is who the people want of Burkina Faso. They want him. They want Ibrahim. But it's like that example that I say that you come to my house, you decide that I'm not taking care of my children and you're going to take over. But then you start leaving my children loose. They are hungry. They are not eating. And apparently you want to help my children. So you are a better parent than me, their own mom. That's what democracy really means. Because democracy means like either you take care of your children the way I want you to raise them, like when it comes to Western countries, or we're going to take over, we're going to invade you so that we can help you take care of your children. But as soon as you come, you take everything in the house, you destroy it, so that the children can call for help and say, come and help us. And they're going to call you because their parents don't have money because you destroyed everything. I don't even know how else to describe this democracy that is so fake, because it's really not democracy. Because when you look at Libya before democracy, who obviously they regarded Gaddafi as a dictator, look at how this dictator was taking care of his own country, and look at what happened after they now introduced democracy, right? So democracy is a hoax, honestly speaking. Democracy is the joke. The democracy is somebody telling you that because they are leaving their children, their 14-year-old at home alone, or they are allowing their 14-year-old to come 12 o'clock, you also need to do that. But then they are doing that because maybe they have, they have wealthy parents or they have inherited a lot. So even if that child go wayward or whatever, they still gonna have something to back them off, to back them up. I'm comparing that in the sense of like a Western parent maybe comparing to us African parents, right? And in that sense, I'm comparing that to the Western world and us African countries, because African countries have a lot to do before we can start saying that we're gonna do what the West are doing in that sense. So when we're talking about democracy, we need to be careful, because to be quite honest, that example that I'm using about raising your child a certain way because you know what you went through, you know what you are trying to accomplish for that child, right? So no one should come and tell you what you should do. And this is what I don't understand. What I don't understand is that it becomes a force. So you want to come and force me to actually raise my child the way you raise your own children. But it's not only that. If I don't agree with that, now you are going to attack me. You are actually going to literally kill me because you want to help me? No, you don't want to help me. You just want my children to become, thugs, to not finish their school, to just become nothing, because you are going to destroy their life in the name of allowing them to do whatever they want, because that's democracy. So guys, share this video, because at least I describe democracy in a kind of simple way. But also I use examples, like let's look at, and this is the problem that I don't understand the West. The West are not worried about Paul Biya. How is it possible that Langley, what is his name actually? Langley guy or whatever. Why is he not worried about Cameroon? Because Cameroon are not doing good, because they have this thing where the French-speaking people and the English-speaking people are fighting. There is kind of a civil war going on there. Why are they not worried about that? So why is the terrorist in Burkina Faso apparently the only thing that is bothering them? And guys, what about Congo? Why are they not worried about Congo, South Sudan? Because there's a lot of like there's a genocide literally going on in Congo, but they are not worried about that. They are worried about Burkina Faso, where everybody is reporting that everything is going well ever since Traore. So guys, honestly speaking, let's wake up and know what's going on and share any video that you found, not only mine, any video that you found, share. I'm doing that actually. I'm having so many videos that I'm sharing.